Welcome. So I'm Renee and this is Katie, and we are coming together to share our conversation. And so I just want to introduce to you how this whole idea came to be. And it came from Katie and I having coffee with one another, or walks, or different times that we've spent together. And we just get on these topics and we run one direction and we run another direction, and when we leave, we are so inspired by the new thinking, by our evolved thinking through the conversation. And we've often said, oh, it's too bad more people can't be part of this conversation. And so we thought about lots of ways of how that can happen. And we both are, we'll come back to this, but we both are very actively working in creating community and groups. But how can we come together more often with more people, more women specifically, and include people in these conversations? And so we thought, what the heck, let's just record our conversations and see what happens with it. And you'll see it's really organic. And we just invite you to participate in whatever way feels good to you. And that could look like just listening and taking in little glimpses and pieces. And it could look like using it as conversation starters with your women's groups and friends. And it could look like dropping some comments below and being part of the conversation in community here on this social media platform. So anyway, before you jump into the conversation with us, I think it's probably a good idea to get to know who the heck is talking. So we'll take a moment and introduce ourselves, and we'll start with you, Katie.
Thanks, Renee. So my name's Katie, and as Renee mentioned, we have connected over this common desire to grow and evolve and explore and um, mm, hear different perspectives and hear different stories. And as Renee mentioned, they are so inspiring. So um, my desire and it's always changing too, so I like to use like that phrase that I don't know who I want to be when I grow up, because it's really changing. But what I know is that I really enjoy um, seeing others live their purpose and just like, or even discovering it, not necessarily living it yet. Maybe it's just the discovery. And I love to do it at home as a mother. I have a 16 and a 14-year-old. I love watching their journeys and their discoveries of who they are, the kids. I love hearing it from friends, getting together and just like hearing stories. And I love to bring it into communities. So I teach yoga and I put together women's circles, and that's what I'm working on right now. But I'm really open to it evolving, and maybe the next conversation we'll have here is going to be something different. So that's kind of the it's hard like for me it's hard to say like describe what I who I am, I guess. And as a mom, maybe like the usual things that we're used to when we reintroduce ourselves. But I feel like the essence of who I am is like forever a learner. I love learning. I love learning about different everything, really different ways of thinking, different ways of taking care of ourselves, of the body, of the mind, of the soul. I love like ancient knowledge, so like studies like Ayurveda, and where that's coming from. But it's really, there's really no um limit for me. Like I love, I know that there's so much and I can only explore whatever's um, right now presenting it. So I'm really open to learning, and that's kind of who I am. So Renee, tell us about you.
Yeah, of course. Well, one of the things we definitely have in common is our desire to learn and grow. And I, it is it is one of the things that I feel like really connects us. Like when we get together, like our gears link up, and then it just like propels us in this forward motion. And we're constantly recommending books to one another and and reading those books and just like learning and growing. And yeah, it's really amazing. So I am also a habitual learner. I just feel so hungry for knowledge, and it's in spirituality, it's in business, it's in personal relationships and personal development. So I wear a few hats. I am a mom of three grown children, and I have been a wife, I have been a business owner, and I've been an employee too. So, how I contribute to humanity right now is through life coaching, my life coaching practice called Walking in Purpose. And I actually started life coaching through health coaching because I had my own personal health coaching journey, or my own personal health journey, which then turned into me wanting to help more people in that way. And and that led to life coaching because, again, just wanting to help more people in a bigger way. And so, but I also do business coaching. So I've had a number of years in the professional beauty industry, and so have helped a few companies along the way with business strategy type things. So it feels like I'm all over the place with wearing lots of hats, but for me, it's just helping more people with the things that I have in my knowledge basket because of my own personal experience. And so I live by something that I say is learn, do, teach, and also know, grow, go. And so those three things, well, it's six things, but those I play in my mind all of the time. And when I'm learning something new, I think about like how it's going to change me, but then who can I help with this? So that's a little bit about me.
I love it. I love it. And as Renee mentioned in the beginning, these conversations when we were talking about how are we gonna what is it gonna look like, us coming together and sharing it with people. And I shared with Renee this intention that I feel like as she invited you, whichever way you want to participate, if you want to participate through listening, I feel like hearing these conversations or just hearing people connect. You talked about relationships, Renee, like getting to observe another relationship where you do feel inspired, where you said, like, the gears link up, and maybe it's realization that you desire that, or maybe it's a reflection that there's maybe a relationship that doesn't feel that way to you. And that is something that, once we change our or become aware of it, the awareness comes in, we can then seek that out. And I would want everyone that desires that to have somebody that they can link that way and just like expedite or just like propel their um, growth in that way. Or maybe it's somebody that wants to, maybe you're somebody that actually wants to participate. So, like Renee said, yes, please write and let's have that conversation, let's have that one. And hopefully, for those that are local, maybe it's, actually coming together in a community, in our communities, to feel, to be a part if this is something that you're desiring. But Renee and I, we've been having conversations really about everything. And when Renee did the introduction of what we're doing, I thought to myself, hey, it's kind of like women getting together for coffee. This is not really different than that, but I think there is a little bit of a difference. And the difference is that it's getting together with the intention to be authentic and to go beyond, hey, how are the kids? How is this? How is that? And to really, I guess, partly be vulnerable and be willing to like admit or share that that everything's not perfect, because it's not. It's really not. It's really not perfect, and it's okay. Like it's okay, but we first have to come to that ourselves, knowing that it doesn't have to be perfect. We will want to make it, but it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah, you said something, Katie, where you said just witnessing what this type of relationship looks like. And I think that that's really important. I think that this authentic relating type relationship is not really modeled or available to us. And so I think a lot of us don't know how to be vulnerable. I think that that stems from a lot of different things. You know, it could stem from not having time to really feel like you can do that. Maybe it stems from fear of the vulnerability of like opening ourselves up to actually be seen as flawed or needy, as maybe it has been said to us, you know, having needs or feeling weak or feeling like we are going through something is a negative thing. And I think it also can come from just a place of like, I don't know, just like trust. You know, maybe somebody has been vulnerable to a woman or, you know, another person. It doesn't have to be another woman, but it seems like there's a lot of wounding around women to women relationships. And so there's a trust issue. And so I think that there's such a valuable opportunity to just see what it looks like for two women to just show up authentically. And yeah, so that we can maybe model it for other people to access it in their own lives.
Yeah. I think another probably topic that's going to come up a lot in these conversations is those like societal expectations, societal examples around us, and that we don't see that. And where it might not feel natural even to have that kind of maybe understanding or openness. And why it's important to us for it to look a certain way, and um, really looking into how it actually feels, like that feel, how does this relationship feels. And mm, and it's really interesting because I'm thinking back. I think one of the cool things is that Renee and I have met not even a year ago. It's probably haven't hasn't even been a year. And that a lot of times we expect relationship to be these like long-term relation. Maybe it's like, you know, a childhood friend, and then maybe something goes wrong with that relationship. Not goes wrong, but you outgrow, or like something changes and you feel like you could never have that. And I feel like this is another beauty and gift, is that it can happen really um, quickly, effortlessly, and um, just from the intention and openness to, I don't know, even to do what's best for you from that place. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 that's so true. Ah, well, so often what we do when we get together is we do, if we're not getting together in person and it's virtual like this, um, you know, we have intention with getting together, and sometimes it's hard, you know, with our schedules to make this happen, but because it's so important, we figure out a way to make it happen. And but what I love that we always do is a check-in. just a real authentic, like, what are you showing up with today? And it just happened so naturally that you guys missed our check-in today because it's like the first thing we dive into. And then I really love, Katie, you always invite some breath and quietness to show up in this calm manner. My personality is like, go, go, go. I'm a manifesting generator. That is my type. What is that called again, Katie?
Human design.
Okay. So I'm a manifesting generator, which is like, go, 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 go. And so I really appreciate, Katie, you having me go, 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 get to this appointment of our time together and then stop and drop in. So it's something that I think is really valuable to me that you bring to our interactions.
And thank you, Renee, for sharing that, because I feel like sometimes this is not a common thing to do, right? And we are kind of just like flowing from this place to this place to this place, and sometimes intention is lost. And maybe this is, I don't want to make like generalized like assumption, but I feel like it would never hurt for us to just like take a breath and connect with it and come into our body. And I think that really creates authenticity too, because we're not caught up on like maybe our drive, or maybe like something. We're really like, oh, I'm right here and I'm right with Renee. So in all of my classes that I teach, my yoga classes, at the beginning we always set an intention, and it's not it's a genuine invitation. Like if you are like, I don't want to create an intention, I just like not interested today, or like this is not aligned with me, that is totally fine. So what an intention is for me is just refocusing. Like my intention is to connect with Renee right now. I'm not going to think about the things I have to do afterwards. I'm not going to think, anything else. And what that leaves is a deep conversation. So when Renee will say, like, what's going on with you, instead of saying, oh, everything's fine, like, let's brush over that and move on to something else. Usually our check-ins are actually like going in depth, what's going on, like like, okay, this is what I observed. And I've now observed it in other relationships too, where how you're doing or what's going on is an actual answer versus a scripted line that is common to use.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that creates that intention to go into authenticity and really be intentional with what you're sharing, what really is on your heart or on your mind.
Yeah.
So, and it just happens through taking a breath. So I invite those that want to just take a breath and just feel into their body, connect to their breath, feel it where you feel it. Feel the sensations of the inhale, feel the sensations of the exhale. Just really connect with your body and this breath, and then do a quick check-in. Check in with the body. Sometimes when we're uncomfortable or stiff or tight somewhere, we're able to pick up on that and just take a few breaths and just to soften that area. Check in with the thoughts. What's on my mind? Where am I going? Just reflect on that without wanting to change it, without having to have the answers, just acknowledging what's on your mind and then what's on your heart. And then if you'd like to set intention for this time together, you can. Intention is usually could be a short, I am present, I am open, I am receiving, I'm open to receiving, I am at ease. Could be any combination of those for this time together. And then just a few breaths, a few more. Picking up on those subtle sensations in your body that only you know, only you can feel. Just this genuine connection with yourself. then when you're ready, coming back together into the space.
Thank you. That always brings me down a couple notches
Yeah.
in
You know what's
the body.
yeah, what's really interesting is that observing how our state impacts others.
Mhm.
So if I show up in here and I'm just like all over the place, that's going to create an over the place feeling. But if I take the time to come in from my place of um, intention, or just like this neutrality, this is neutrality. And it doesn't mean that we're not going to have ups and downs. We are going to have super highs and be like, oh my goodness, I'm so excited by this. And then sometimes maybe it gets really deep and it's sad and it's a release. And that's okay. But where it's this, that's going to be from the conversations, from interactions we're having, instead of bringing it into our
Mhm.
from the outside. So
Oh, I love that. Man, I already feel like I want to go in a couple directions. Um, so first I want to ask you, how does it feel for you to guide the breath work and the presence versus being someone like for me, when you're guiding, I'm receiving. So do you feel like when you're guiding that you can also drop in and breathe and feel the sensations in the body?
so I feel like breath work, just like well, for me, breath work is part of yoga. And yoga for me is synonymous with practice. It's a practice. And what I've learned, I've been practicing, I think the first class I went to was maybe 17, 18 years ago, was the first ever. A friend was like, hey, we're gonna go to yoga. I was like, okay. And we went, and I had no idea what was going on. And then I went again on my own 16 years ago, and that's when my personal practice started. And having practiced for 16 years, and this does not mean every day and in a certain way, but really like student of this practice, we do, the body responds for me so much quicker. So as I'm guiding, I'm in my own space. What I'm also noticing is that it almost feels like when I'm guiding others, I'm being guided. So
Mm.
it's like this channeling of guidance, of breath work, because closing my eyes and just like taking a few breaths, it just flows through me. And it's it's cool and unusual to recognize, like, wait, hold on, where is this coming from? Sure, there is some part that is knowledge, something that I've learned, but
Mhm.
sometimes I'm like, I have no idea where this is coming from, and it just flows out. So to answer your question, yes, I receive as I give, because I'm receiving it. I'm coming right into that state. Like my body knows, oh, a breath. Oh, I know this intentional breath. And we're in that space already for me. So then I can receive and give at the same time.
Nice.
And as I'm sharing this with you, this reminds me of Reiki. So as a Reiki practitioner, a lot of times people will ask me or will say, well, you probably are exhausted after like a session. And I'm not, because I am not, Reiki is not me. I'm not giving it. It's not coming from me. Reiki
Mhm.
is coming from Reiki, this higher consciousness. And I'm actually receiving. I've had so many times where I would go into a session just, like maybe a little tired from the day, or maybe I'm like feeling a little bit like of a headache, and I just float out of it too. And it's just like, I'm like, oh my goodness, we both were received. So I'm just showing up and creating the space,
Mhm.
right? it's the space if we're doing it in person, it's actually setting up the space if we're doing it virtually. But then I'm receiving just as much. And this beautiful, like how our conversations flow everywhere. It's like this beautiful realization that there's an abundance of everything.
Yeah.
There's just this abundance of um, you could be giving and you could receive more than you're giving.
Yeah. It's like the life force, like when you're walking in your purpose, and I mean, it doesn't have to be like life purpose. It could be like breath work. So like you're saying, like just dropping into the breath, like we all have that need. It's like our life force energy, right? It's that's it. Um, it feels really different. And so when we're energetic beings, and so when we're receiving or giving energy, um it lightens us, it lightens us up, I guess. And that's the same for me, like when I'm working in my purpose, those things that I mentioned, whether it's helping someone with health, helping somebody with their life and their path, or in their business, I feel so energized. I've had multiple people say, "Oh my gosh, like you talked to 7 clients in one day. That must be exhausting." It's like, no, I have a hard time going to sleep because I'm so energized. So I think that there's a difference in, doing things that really light you up or light us up, and that we feel like really connected to. And I feel like breath work is like the foundation of all of that. And like knowing what that breath work feels like in the body, and even, Reiki massage, like just like knowing how that feels in the body, and then like becoming familiar with that really amazing feeling in the body, and then seeking that feeling out in other ways, in relationships, in how we work, what we do for work. And if we can't get that in our work, how can we show up in community, volunteer, so that we're like recharging our battery by like giving and receiving and giving and receiving in a life force sort of way.
Yeah.
So
So many
I know, right? As we're
responses to this because I think that's like one of the things, once again, not to make generalized assumption, but not like giving more than you receive, like closing yourself off. Even maybe we sometimes can close ourselves off with that mindset of, I don't need anything. Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. I definitely have had that mindset and still sometimes do. Oh, everybody needs everything, but I'm good. I don't really need anything,
Mhm.
you know? So opening yourself up to receive that. And also another thing that you mentioned, having 7 clients in a day, those are 7 aligned clients. And
Mhm.
that's very important when you're doing work, when you're working, not even for yourself, but just like in your work, for it to be aligned in that way. Because if you were to have 7 clients that were not a good fit, it would not feel that way. So
Yes.
that's another way to know that you are just these beautiful, because, and I truly believe the way we receive these beautiful matches is by being open and being ourselves,
Mhm.
like opening ourselves to receive in that way and feel energized through work. So then, yeah, I'm so excited to hear that. Like that is, because 7 is a lot. It's a
Yeah.
lot of people to work on one throughout the day. So the fact that you do feel so much energy, just every single one of those 7 is just, you guys are just such a beautiful match for each other.
Thank you. And, I think we both do group type classes too. So you do group yoga classes, and I do group workshops, and then we both do women's gatherings, where there can be upwards of 20 or more people in the space. And so I'm so energized by those group gatherings too. And it is, the things that we're coaching or teaching in workshops and in the studio, um, they're they're high vibe, high energy type topics, and so they attract a certain kind of high vibe, high energy, seeking, growing people. And so I just get so filled up when I'm in those spaces with even more than one person.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so that's super fun for me as well. And I know you too, and we've done so many of those together.
Yeah. And you know what? I feel like I think it's also really important to mention that, as Renee said, like high vibe and high energy doesn't mean like everything's fine and everything's great. It's high vibe and high energy with challenging sometimes, like maybe you're having like a physical challenge or, like a relationship challenge, but the approach to it is high vibe, high energy, and just, like trusting to be received in whatever season you're in. And, definitely not expecting things to look perfect. And I feel like one of the things that I was gonna, Renee was gonna do a check in with me before we started recording. I was like, you know what, Renee? I feel like that check in could be really useful to somebody else. So I'll share the story here. And really, I feel like we need a little bit of context, but don't want to take too much time. So, like, I'll try to summarize it the best way possible. So, this weekend, I was taking my daughter to get her nails done. And I know that she had a very specific vision for it. And we had a conversation that, like, it's like an artistic expression. So, you know, the image that she found is not exactly who she's going to see. So their interpretation might look different. And she's like, yeah, totally fine with it. It didn't turn out like a picture, like the picture. And even heading into that, I was, um, I think I definitely had a thought that I was like, man, it's not going to work out that way. Like, I just, I don't know. That's the feeling I had, or that's the belief that I was, acknowledging. And then afterwards, I found myself just so like, part of me was like, I should have like gone in with her and like helped her like communicate this. But then I thought to myself, no, it's so great that she like took the lead. This is so wonderful. And like, and we're talking about nails. So it's like, it's really like if we like take ourselves out of it, not important. But what I saw was really important in this for myself was to feel okay or feel at peace with my child feeling, and I don't know how she felt, upset, disappointed, let's say, right? Um, but that was affecting me. And I was really grateful for this experience. So it's really weird to like say that, but because I definitely, just like I shared with the breath, with practice, I was uncomfortable. It did dampen my, like, I was like, why does it have to be this? Like I was in that kind of mind chatter. But ultimately, I was so glad that I could come around pretty quickly from it and not in a like this, like forceful, oh, who cares? It's just not in that way, but in a way like, oh, I'm still growing through this experience of allowing my kid to feel down or allowing my kid to feel mm, disappointed without fixing it for them.
Mm,
And this was such a great experience to do that because there's going to be so many other experiences like that. Right. And I'm still like, it's happened Saturday, we're like Wednesday now. but I'm still like, I feel like there was so much to experience and learn in that. Um, and I'm hoping that it built up that muscle that when there is another challenge that comes up and I want to fix it for my kid, I'm going to feel at peace letting them fail, or like letting them feel disappointed, letting them feel whatever that will be.
Mm.
And me feeling totally like at peace, not like, also not in that like, oh, I don't care, like I don't care, like
Mm.
brush it off, but just like recognizing, oh, that sucks, but okay, and just like making peace with it. And like, to me, those types of interactions and situations that I can observe right in my home is so valuable, are so valuable, that I think this is like the beauty of the conversations, almost like therapy, right? I get to share this. This is not really maybe like a traumatic experience, but it's definitely a growing experience.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because we are so, I guess, conditioned to avoid pain. And so as individuals, we're conditioned to avoid pain. And so, and then also as parents, we are conditioned to try to help those that we care for to avoid pain. And so in this situation that you're describing, I imagine you were feeling your own pain. And in regard to your child having pain or disappointment. I mean, pain, but it's really in the version of disappointment. And so your child is disappointed and you feel empathetic towards her. And then also like you're having your own human experience with that, and being okay with that. And I think it's such a really good opportunity to like look at what part of this am I most uncomfortable with? Is it that she's suffering? Suffering, I say suffering. Is it that she's suffering, or is it that I can't fix it and that I should have been a better mother, I should have gone in, like shoulda, woulda, coulda, and really to avoid suffering for her and also avoid suffering for you. But I love what you did instead. And I think that, like you said, it's such a really beautiful opportunity to work that muscle of like, life is full of really beautiful things and it's also full of disappointments. And it's how we navigate through those and how we can be with one another in disappointments and not always feel like we have to fix it and not always feel like our uncomfortableness with others being disappointed supersedes their experience. And I think that that is also a tendency. We're just all uncomfortable being uncomfortable. So hurry up and make it go away instead of sitting with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of like, I'm recognizing for me also this like control, right?
Mm.
If I was to control the situation, I would have controlled the outcome
Mhm.
of being disappointed or of seeing her not get what she wanted. And I feel like this is such a safe and small and like easy way to work on something so much bigger, which is control, which is wanting to control other things to be, and just like being aware of wanting it and why you want to control it. Because like you said, you don't want to feel uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Want to You don't want to feel, like any of those ways, or like, or you want to feel, maybe you don't want to show that you feel that way, like it's like, because it's not welcomed, right? Like it's not really a welcomed, like, if you're frustrated, or like it's not really a welcomed, like you said, societal norms feeling, right? Like if you're frustrated and you have something going on, right? Like, so I know for myself, like if this was to happen and you and I had a coffee date, I would show up to that coffee date and be like, I am so frustrated that I'm, like feeling the, like, like all of these things, instead of like trying to like bury it and be like, hey, yeah, everything's fine, like kind of thing. So then another muscle that we're working on, the more we have these safe spaces to share that way, the more normal it becomes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and it's so much less lonely to know that, like, Katie has a bad day too.
Yeah.
And wow, she suffers with this too. She's struggling with this too. Okay, then my struggle makes my struggle normal versus feeling like I'm the only one with issues because everything is fine for Katie and any other person I interact with. And that's so isolating.
Yeah. And I feel like that's also it's common to do that, and then to feel isolated and like not to feel um okay. So like I feel that it's really important to not create, like I always think to myself, with everything I do, I really don't want to create any sort of like image of perfection.
Mm.
And it's really hard.
Yeah, and a buzz expression is false narrative right now. And so us doing that with one another and even with ourselves. How are you? I'm fine. Are you
Yeah.
fine? Right now I'm not fine. But because we said it and because we said it to ourselves and to another, that's a false narrative. That's not actually not how you really are.
Yeah.
And it's not, I feel like there's a line between being a habitual complainer and looking for the negative, and then also just being true.
Yes.
So I think that it's important to understand like intention behind sharing where you are authentically, and then also being mindful not to be a habitual complainer where you always focus on the problem, you know?
Yeah. And
Uh,
like it's not even a problem. It's like talking about this in a normal kind of like, this is the way we are, right?
yeah.
This is how our days go. Sometimes, we have a challenge and we are uncomfortable with it, and then everything's fine then. Like everything's like, feels very uh good. Like it's a good, and like it's so not giving it like even the definition of like good or bad, right? Like
Mm.
challenge is not bad. You've had it and you had a certain feeling about it, which is not those feelings that we praise, like that we are like, let's talk about these, you
Yeah.
know, but it's really neutral. It's back to that base,
Hmm.
right? Like human experience will be challenging, disappointing, euphoric, amazing, like challenging, and like sucky, like, but once again, like these are all, like sucky is our interpretation of something, right? Like if I'm disappointed, oh, that sucks, like, but really it doesn't suck. It's, you're just disappointed.
Yeah. Yeah. Because like when you put it into perspective, so it sucked that that happened with your daughter's nails. It sucked that she was disappointed. And there's somebody else who would look at that and be like, wow, she got to have her nails done.
Like
Right.
it's,
So it's
yeah,
it's relative, it's our perspective, but we both are true.
yeah.
We're both, everyone's entitled to their own experience. And I think that that's where it's important to understand and validate that we're all entitled to our own experience and, go with the ebb and flow of those experiences
Yeah.
and be with all of the feelings because they're all part of us.
And that's where like the challenging part is, it's like being with those feelings that we don't define as good, or the ones we want to experience,
Yeah.
right? Like we, like I'm even mindful of, I really used to enjoy this, I don't know if it's an exercise or it's mm, this way of like leading or like being led to, like when you inhale joy and you exhale something that you don't want, and it's like dissociating with that, whatever the other side of joy is for you, and wanting to get rid of it, right? Back to what you said, like avoiding or like not wanting to experience it,
Mm.
where it really, and as I'm sharing this, like I'm aware of it in this moment when it's happening. I'm not able to just be like, oh, it's just an experience. Like I'm definitely going through it. And I think it's really important to do that because I remember hearing this analogy and I really love it. Like, we are the screen door through which emotions just flow. And just like joy can flow through us and we are embracing it, we're like, oh, this feels good. The same way disappointment is going to flow through us. And if we are at, at, at a part of our journey where we are at peace with it, it's just going to feel the same as joy.
Hmm.
It's just an emotion.
Yeah.
And I feel like emotions, especially those that we don't want to experience, are really great indicators of where to look.
Hmm.
So if we're like, we sometimes call them triggers, right? Like I was triggered, or like if we something's causing us that, there's a reason. It's either our mindset, our beliefs, our past experience,
Hmm.
but there's something to it. So we can, and maybe, now as I'm sharing this with you, maybe the same true with good emotions is that we want to feel them so much because there's the same need, right, to experience that because you haven't experienced that before, or like whatever it might be. um so I was really grateful for the experience. Like I definitely was able to observe a change where before that I, like it probably would have felt even more heavier where it didn't, and it was just like this reflection and just like this duality of like being excited that I'm able to navigate this, because when my kid is in a situation that she's in challenge and I can't fix it,
Mm.
it's not going to take me out of that neutral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And I
it's
feel
sort of
like that's,
like
yeah,
it's sort of like looking at it like it's a cloud. Oh, there it is. It's a cloud floating by in a blue sky. Oh, there it is. And I'm just noticing it. And as I notice it, what happens? What's the impact? A cloud floating across the sky, the impact is, that maybe the sun is blocked for a little bit. Maybe it gets a little cooler. So it feels, sometimes when that happens and it's 95 degrees out, you're thankful for the cloud. And sometimes when the cloud goes by and it's 70 degrees and breezy, you're not so thankful for the cloud, but you're just noticing there's a cloud and it passes. And so I feel like those emotions, all emotions really, are just clouds passing. And so, looking at it as how it's impacting me right now. How does it feel in my body? How does it feel in my mind? How am I reacting to it? How am I responding to it? And then how am I judging it? Am I judging it? Is it
yeah,
good or bad? And so, I love the cloud analogy because
yeah,
I feel like it's all perspective too.
it is. And it's, like it's your personal experience with it, like you said.
Hmm.
And everybody's going to have a different experience with their things happening in their day, in their life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's another reason to practice this authenticity for yourself, because then you'll know, you know what is right for you, or like, like maybe not that you'll know what's right for you, but maybe you'll acknowledge how different something can feel, how it would feel for you and me experiencing the same thing.
Yeah.
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 And we don't have to like agree, or like we don't have to like that, like this is what it should look like, and I feel like that's really important, back to that, having those relationships where those gears link up and just turn, that it's, you don't feel that you have to be a certain way
Yeah.
to, like you don't have to feel the same way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. But this is a good check-in. I really think that it's thought provoking. We can both learn from it, and anybody that's tuning in
Yeah.
can
And it
reflect.
goes beyond like motherhood, right? It's just like, it's really a lot of the things that I'm like reflecting on or learning right now is that authentic self.
Mhm. Yeah.
So like what it is for you, and it, like, this is just my experience, and you don't have to be a mom to relate, or you don't have to be getting your nails to relate. It's just recognizing something, and just observing it.
Yeah. Like identifying, observing, and then, reflecting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so good. So I was in a authentic relating workshop recently, and there was an opportunity to go around the room and share just a quick check-in on how everyone is doing in the room. And so, being mindful of the time, I really loved what they used as their check-in framework. And it was rose, thorn, bud. And I really think this could be such a valuable tool for all of us all the time, like all day long. If you need just a little short reminder of like, how do we check in? And so you can use this in a particular situation. So the situation with your daughter and her nails, for example. So Rose is like, what is good? What is good about this situation? What is um fragrant and pleasing to the eye, and all of those beautiful things. And then what is a thorn? What is the thing that's like triggering me, jabbing me, hurting me right now? And then what is the bud? Like what's coming? What is growing? What is blossoming? What is new from this experience? And I thought that was just such a really cool way of checking in, just in general, but you can apply it to every situation. And I think that can help with the mindset, so that if you have a tendency to kind of stay stuck in either the rose or the thorn, or be maybe a little avoidant and only focus on the bud, but it's all part of the rose. And so I think that it can be a really handy little tool.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
um and I feel like it's, for me, it's always like that awareness. So like that awareness that you can even apply something like this to a situation, or as you're talking about it, applying it to situation, being like, I love the rose, I love the bud, I want nothing to do with the thorn. Like let's quickly skip over
Yeah.
that part, um because like we talked about at the beginning, like it's not joyful, like it's not joyful, like the thorn, but also it's also a narrative that it's not joyful. It
Mhm.
just is. It really, like, so it's what I'm finding really like interesting and like challenging and fascinating is that knowing these things, but then when you're in the situation, not being able to apply it, and then being totally at peace with it. Like, like for me, it's like the judging of like thoughts even sometimes, right? Like, sometimes like as we are growing and blossoming, we're like, oh, I should be past this, right? Oh, I can't believe this is still a thing,
Yeah.
you know? And getting caught up and judging that, right?
Mhm.
Like judging that, like, I should be further along. Oh, I can't believe this is still an issue for me.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
like, and it's just like, it's so humbling to like be like, um, to share that, to be like, No, because I feel like back to that authentic self and then not creating this perfect persona, right? Even if when you're a teacher, right, of that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So not and not expecting someone, like that practice what you preach kind of thing, but also not in that sense, but like um giving, I guess, grace to that there is a practice piece. It's
Yes.
practicing, it's not perfecting what you preach.
Yeah.
And sometimes we practice and the practice is great, and sometimes we can't even apply it. Like we can't even practice it, but we know it.
Yeah. Oh, so I'm not much of a sports person. But for some reason, a sports analogy comes up for me right now. And I think about in football, American football, I will say, these professional athletes, they're professional, they're paid highly, and are the best in their field. And yet they still practice. They practice every week, and they still mess up, and they still review. They have film day, and it's an opportunity to check in what went well, what didn't go well, and what are we going to change for next week. And each week they have a new opponent. They're showing up as the version of themselves against that opponent, and and they still practice, and then they still mess up, and I think that applying that to us, we may be at such and such age. We should be,
Hmm,
because
hmm.
we've had lots of practice, and you might think that one is should be more evolved than they are, because they're professionals at this point, but it still takes practice. It still takes time to review, what went well, what didn't go well, and look at, the new situations, like the new opponents, if you are using that sports analogy, that are in front of us, and how are we going to navigate through that new situation, showing up as our best self, applying all of the practices that we've had, and then also like giving grace, like, oh wow, I really screwed up in that area. That play was awful. And how can I do better next time? It's through awareness and review and more practice.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I feel like for me, it always like applies to like your yoga practice.
Hmm.
Like it's the same way. Like, and that's why it's called a practice, because you're practicing it your whole life, right? And as you were sharing about, the sports analogy, I also think it's so important to look back from where you came, right? And you might not be in this like ideal state that maybe you thought, or maybe it should be.
Hmm.
But when you look back, right? Like same with like for breath with me. I'm one of those people that could like that would tell you, "Oh, I can't meditate. I can't shut off my brain. Like this will never work for me." I remember like first, the final resting pose, the shavasana, and the cue being that you're just like having no thoughts. And I was like, well, that's impossible. That is, I don't even know what that is. And now practicing it and not getting to like this perfection, but also reflecting back and being like, oh my goodness, that looked really different. And practice does. And with body, it's really easy to see the physical stuff. Like,
Hmm.
if you weren't able to do something and now you're able to do something, it's easy to see that progress. But with mind stuff and emotion stuff, it's really hard to gauge.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what does that peace look like? Or can I be even more peaceful and more neutral? How do you measure that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, you measure it by feeling, and you
Yeah.
measure it by reflecting, and you
Yeah.
measure like your response time to triggers, and by your relationships.
Yeah.
You know, people that used to trigger you no longer trigger you, and then it's like, oh wow, did they change? Nope. but I did. So I mean, it's not as easy to measure as like your biceps growing or your waist
Yes,
getting smaller,
yes.
but with reflection, you're able to see it.
Yeah, and it is like you said, it's a very hard to measure because you can't get scale and measure how
Mhm.
much you've grown in your emotional intelligence or like in your mindset, right? Um, and you're kind of the judge of it. Like there's nothing to like it's just you doing work with yourself.
Yeah.
And we can choose to be like the type of coach that's like come on do better, like we get to choose what we want to do, or the one that says you know or the one that's too lax, right? Where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, you're doing great, like give yourself a break, and just like that honest in between, like coach. I was so as I was preparing for, I teach on Wednesdays, so as I was preparing for this week's class, I took a little bit of inspiration from Mother's Day. Just not that it's the day of mothers, but like what does mother mother energy or mother essence represents? And it for me, um, kind of a few things stood out, like nurturing, um, love and nurture, like those two. And then how can we like give that to ourselves? How can we like love ourselves like and not comparing like a mom would, but like in this motherly way,
Mhm.
releasing any narrative of what a mother means to you, but just like this, the most motherly way to love yourself and the most motherly way to nurture yourself. And so I invited everyone, and like I did reflection myself, and just like this. What I love about group things, right, is that we get to kind of like, I don't want to say that we get to check out, but we almost get to like experience a different like world for a little bit, because
Yeah.
we let everything go and we're like, here we are. And then like whether it's we're like, oh, I'm going to extend this motherly love towards myself, like play with ourselves, like these things that might not happen naturally in the world because we're just in a more like rhythm of the world, like getting things done, like this and that. And just to sit in this place and almost like play with it. And it's just, this self coaching piece, like being that, what kind of coach are you going to be to yourself? What kind of mother can you be to yourself? What kind of, that's maybe it's not even self love. I think like, because, the motherly love is a piece of like feeling taken care of
Mhm.
and allowing yourself to feel that way. And I feel like if there's any rigid like shoulds, oh, you should know better, or come on, you should be further along, you know, sitting down with that acceptance and just like feeling, I don't want to use the word perfect, but like the way you are right now is the most perfect place.
Hmm. I think that that is such a beautiful goal. And I think that group settings is a really beautiful place to experience that. I think that in a group setting, you know, not just group setting, but in life in general, I think being with other people, and viewing others as a reflection of ourselves, and the aspects that we like about people are the aspects that we actually like about ourselves, right? And the things that annoy us about people are actually the things we don't like about ourselves. And so when we're in a group setting, we get lots of reflections. And, it's like a prism, you have reflections from every angle, which can be beautiful and overwhelming. And I think that is a really incredible perspective. And I also think that in order to receive that nurturing motherly love, I think that it's important to evaluate what motherly love has been for us
Mm-hmm.
and even parental love,
Mm-hmm.
and if it has been less than nurturing and less than loving, if it has been critical and judgmental and black and white, and having a lack of forgiveness and flexibility and guidance, then maybe we title it something different
Yeah.
until we feel differently about that.
Yeah. And that's why I really wanted it to, like make that distinction. It's
Mhm.
not about, like you said, parental love that we experienced. It's about creating something, maybe, or maybe it's exactly what you experienced, but, like dissociating the two and just like creating this, like, what do you need right now? Kind of, and I think the like self acceptance, right? That like unconditional, like I love the idea of unconditional love. I think it's really hard. I don't think it's really like, because there is conditions that we, even to ourselves, right?
Yeah,
Well, when I'm doing this, oh, this
I
is
am
so easy,
good.
so easy. But when I'm like, even emotions, right? Like it's hard to, for me to practice that when you're like, well, this is not ideal, like, but it is that unconditional. And then, the reason I wanted to introduce it is because when we can extend this to ourselves, then yes, we can also extend it to others, but we'll show up different. We'll feel a little less guarded. We'll feel a little less having to feel like, oh, I have to prove or something,
Mhm.
you just really like, oh, I am really accepting myself the way I am,
Yeah,
to show up.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah, and if you are having a hard time with that, I think it's an invitation to dig in a little bit, if
Yeah,
that's something that you really struggled with.
yeah, yeah. That's that's always a good indicator. And also, I feel like this personal growth is so, like, there's so many dimensions, right? Like, because recognizing something like that is a thought or maybe a pattern could feel like there's something wrong, right? And there's nothing wrong. You just recognized something. It doesn't have a different definition or like meaning.
Yeah, it's like, "Oh, that's there." It's like something was behind the scenes. Something was behind a chair, and you didn't know it was there because it was behind the chair. And when
But
you
it's
find
hard to, like, once you become aware, sometimes it's so hard to just be neutral about it.
Mhm.
You do feel a certain way about it.
Oh, but
And
like you
and
said,
and
it's practice.
like, I think it's touching on like the shadow.
Yeah, the shadow for sure. Yeah. And that's where the work comes in. So once you're like, "Ooh, wow, I couldn't find unconditional nurturing love to myself because I'm undeserving." And it's like,
Mhm.
"Oh, wait a second. Why is that? Why what is there? What's in the
Yeah.
closet there?" And so, that is a definite opportunity to
Mhm.
look in that shadow. And,
Yeah.
that can be really scary doing
Mhm.
shadow work, but man, is it freeing.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I've done a lot of that in my personal growth journey, and it's super it's really hard because you're unpacking a lot of old conditioning. But it's also really beautiful because you are going back through some really hurtful parts of your past and healing that, speaking to that little girl, that little Renee girl that was on the playground and somebody said something mean, and showing up for that little version of myself, and in a way that I wished that the adult caretaker would have, and didn't. And so I get to, from this perspective, give that little girl what she needs, and then move past that, and then I don't have to carry it again, and And the next time it pops up in my mind, I just get to remind myself like, oh no, we already fixed that. We already loved that little girl through that. So it doesn't need to have impact the way that it
Yeah.
used to.
And also like recognizing that it might show up again and again and again. It doesn't mean that you didn't, you know, tend to it. It just means that it just shows up again and again for as many times as it needs to. But it's similar to what you said with mirrors, right? Like people being mirrors, and like I find so it's back to that, like acknowledging it, like knowing about it, but when it shows up, being like, no, no way, no, no, it's impossible. It's impossible that I see myself in this situation, in this, like reaction, like no, no, like it's just like it just doesn't make sense, and it's because it is like hidden, or like you maybe you don't want to even admit it to yourself, and uh like you said, it is like challenging, and not definitely this joyful, like working on myself, I'm gonna be better, stronger, this and this. It's not just that. It's the a lot of acknowledging.
Yeah. Yeah. And, back to the beginning of why we are doing this, our recording our conversations, we could call it a podcast, but um, it's really an opportunity to just pull back from the go part of life and drop into the be part of life. And or I guess it's pull back from the doing and spend some time in being, and being present, being intentional, being authentic, and in relationship with someone else who is doing that as well. And I just am so grateful that we get to do this with each other. I think that I think it's so dang important that that we have these types of relationships in our lives. I think that I know that loneliness is an epidemic, and we're around people and we're connected to people on social media, and in all the ways that we used to be connected, and yet we're lonelier. And so I think, having these recorded conversations is just an invitation for those types of relationships. And like we said in the beginning, maybe this will be inspiring to other people, and maybe they'll jump in with our conversation. Um, but I think what everyone will see is that we're just real people, just like plugging away and trying to figure this thing out, and trying to be better versions of ourselves, trying to show up better for ourselves, and trying to show up better for those around us. And being habitual learners, and habitual practicers, and having people in our corner that are accountable with us, not to us, but with us. And not in a way of like, did you do the thing? More of like a reminder and a mirror that that we are loving.
Yeah. And um what's the word, like it's not an invitation, it's gonna come, the word is coming, but it's giving the allowing somebody to do this too. um
Like permission.
there you go. Yes, it's permission to be that way, do that, like permission just to be.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah, just this is, and I really do hope that if this conversation resonates, that those who it resonates with jump in. And maybe sometimes maybe it's hard to share, like really in-depth thing. And Renee and I will think of ways to create these intimate opportunities to share, because I think there's also something to, like Renee mentioned, um, when you gather in a group, right? Like social media is just so different because we really don't know who's in that group. But our hope and our vision is that it's really intentional, um, kind people that join, and maybe there might be need to um, for really in-depth conversations to happen in a different way, but for now, just like even to share what feels um comfortable, what's comfortable to share, and it doesn't have to be details, but just the acknowledgement that um it's there, like it's connection, I guess, or alignment.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I feel like we should end our conversation, at least the recorded version for now, and pick up the conversation at another time. And yeah, just keep the conversation going. I think as people are seeing, like we can go in a lot of different directions, and um it's just so fun to spin off of each other in all of these different directions that we go. And I always feel lifted up, and the time flies by. It has been well over an hour, and I feel like I could keep talking to you, um because that's just how it is. But let's end it now,
All
and
right.
let's circle back and have another conversation where we can see and hear each other's perspectives and hear from everybody else in our community.
Thank you, Renee.
Thank you.